The merciless Wyoming sun beat down on Helena Bauer as she stumbled across the cracked earth. Each labored breath felt like inhaling fire, sending shooting pain through her parched throat. Her once white dress, now stained brown with 3 days of frontier dust, hung loose on her thinning frame. Her cracked, bleeding lips formed silent prayers with every agonizing step forward. "Water," she whispered, though no sound emerged from her dehydrated vocal cords. "Please, water." Death by thirst stalked her relentlessly. Her vision blurred, darkness encroaching as her body consumed itself from within. 3 days without water had reduced this proud 26-year-old German immigrant to a desperate ghost haunting the vast emptiness of the Wyoming territory. In her trembling hand, Helena clutched a glass bottle filled with clear liquid, its Cyrillic lettering catching the harsh sunlight. The Russian vodka sloshed against the glass, with each unsteady step taunting her parched throat. Though the madness of dehydration urged her to drink it, the rational part of her mind still knew alcohol would only accelerate her demise. The bottle was one of her few remaining possessions, a parting gift from a Russian sailor who had taken pity on her and Carl during their journey west. Carl had handled it with unusual reverence. When she'd received it, a shadow of recognition flickering across his features before he'd carefully instructed her to keep it safe. "Some things," he'd murmured cryptically, "have value beyond their obvious purpose." He'd stared at the Cyrillic lettering with an intensity she'd found puzzling at the time. Now it was simply one more mystery about her late fiancé that she'd likely never solve. When Helena spotted the trading post flying distinctive Cheyenne markings, hope flared briefly in her sunken eyes. The last half-mile nearly killed her, but desperation drove her forward until she collapsed against the wooden post supporting the entrance. Inside, several Cheyenne tribesmen turned toward the commotion, their expressions revealing nothing as they observed the half-dead white woman at their doorstep. "Water." Helena rasped the single word, scraping against her throat like shards of glass. "Please, water." A tall figure rose from the back of the trading post and approached with measured steps. The eagle feathers in his war bonnet swayed gently with each movement, his weathered face a mask of calm authority as he studied the desperate woman before him. Chief Red Elk's dark eyes, sharp and assessing despite his 45 years, took in Helena's sunburnt skin, her bloodshot eyes, and the death grip she maintained on the vodka bottle. His gaze lingered momentarily on the bottle, a flicker of recognition crossing his features that Helena, in her desperation, failed to notice. For just an instant, something softened in the chief's stoic expression. Not pity, but perhaps a deeper understanding than Helena could comprehend in her current state. "Trade," Helena managed to whisper, extending the bottle with shaking hands. "All I have? Please." Chief Red Elk's expression remained measured as he studied first the vodka, then the dying woman offering it. But deep in his eyes, something awakened a connection he hadn't expected to find in this desperate stranger. Helena swayed dangerously, her vision tunneling to pinpricks of light. As darkness claimed her consciousness, her last sensations were of strong hands catching her, and the precious vodka bottle being carefully removed from her desperate grip. Helena awoke to the sensation of cool liquid touching her parched lips. Instinctively, she tried to gulp the water, but firm hands held the small wooden cup steady, allowing her only the smallest sips. "Slowly," a deep voice instructed. "Too much will kill you as surely as none." Helena's vision gradually focused on the face of Chief Red Elk, who knelt beside her. She lay on a buffalo hide near the trading post's central fire, her head slightly elevated on a folded blanket. The interior of the post was dimly lit, but well organized, with trade goods neatly arranged on shelves and several Cheyenne moving quietly about their business. "The water." She managed, her voice still a painful rasp. "Drink little but often." Red Elk instructed, offering the cup again. "Your body must remember how to hold water." Helena took another careful sip, fighting her body's desperate urge to grab the cup and drain it. Even these small amounts sent relief cascading through her system, though her throat still felt like it had been scraped raw with sandpaper. "My bottle," she whispered, sudden panic rising as she remembered the vodka, her last possession of value. Red Elk nodded toward a shelf where the vodka bottle stood, its contents catching the firelight. "It is safe," he assured her. "An unusual trading item for these lands." Helena tried to sit up, but weakness forced her back down. "It's all I have to trade, for water, for food." The chief studied her with penetrating intensity. "Russian spirits," he observed, surprising her with his recognition of the bottle's origin. "I have seen such bottles before, though rarely in a woman's possession." Helena wondered at this knowledge, but was too weak to question it. Instead, she focused on her immediate needs. "Please," she said. "I need water. I can trade." Red Elk raised his hand in a gesture of patience. "First, you must heal. Then we will speak of trade." He nodded to a young Cheyenne woman who brought over a small clay pot containing a paste that smelled of herbs and beeswax. "For your lips and skin," he explained. "The sun has burned you badly." As the woman gently applied the cooling salve to her cracked lips and sunburned face, Helena studied Red Elk more carefully. There was something in his manner that puzzled her, not the wariness she might expect from a native leader encountering a white stranger, but rather an almost expectant curiosity, as though her arrival had confirmed something he had been waiting for. "Why help me?" she asked finally. "I'm a stranger to your people." Red Elk's expression remained impassive, but his eyes held a depth of thought that spoke of complex considerations. "All who come in peace may find shelter for a time," he replied, though Helena sensed there was more he wasn't saying. "Rest now. Your strength will return with patience." He rose with fluid grace that belied his years and turned to speak with a younger warrior, tall, lean, with sharp eyes, that regarded Helena with undisguised suspicion. Their conversation in the Cheyenne language was brief, but appeared intense, with the younger man gesturing in Helena's direction several times, while Red Elk responded with calm authority. Helena caught the word "wasichu," white person, several times, but could understand nothing more. Finally, the younger warrior nodded reluctantly and moved away, though his posture remained tense. "My sister's son, young Hawk," Red Elk explained, noticing Helena watching. "He questions the wisdom of sheltering white strangers in these troubled times." "And you?" Helena asked, her voice gaining a touch of strength from the water. "What do you believe?" Red Elk's gaze was steady, assessing. "I believe that small things sometimes carry great importance," he replied cryptically, "and that those dying of thirst rarely pose immediate threats." Before Helena could question this enigmatic response, the trading post door burst open, flooding the interior with harsh sunlight. 3 mounted figures silhouetted against the glare caused an immediate reaction among the Cheyenne. Several warriors moved with practiced efficiency to defensive positions, their weapons ready, but not yet raised, as Red Elk stepped forward with calm authority. Helena struggled to sit up, recognizing a new threat in the suddenly tense atmosphere. As the newcomers entered, her blood ran cold with recognition. The future she had been fighting to reach had just collided violently with the past she'd been trying to escape. The older of the 2 men, Marcus Fletcher by the name stitched on his weathered vest, fixed his cold eyes directly on Helena. "Well, ain't this convenient?" He drawled, his hand resting casually near the revolver holstered at his hip. "Been tracking you for 3 days, Miss Bauer." Helena's throat tightened with fear as Fletcher produced a folded paper from his vest pocket and made a show of examining it before holding it up for all to see. The crude sketch on the wanted poster was unmistakably her, with "Thief" printed in bold letters beneath her name. "Helena Bauer," Fletcher announced as if reading sacred text. "German. Wanted for theft from the Blue Creek Mining Company. Reward of $50 for her capture." His younger partner, Billy Rawlins, kept his hand openly on his pistol eyes, darting nervously around the trading post. Behind them, the third rider remained mounted outside, face concealed by a blue scarf that revealed only watchful eyes above the fabric. Red Elk's expression remained unchanged as Fletcher continued his practice speech. "We tracked her from the mining camp. Trail led us right here." Fletcher's eyes locked onto Helena with predatory satisfaction. "And there she is, hiding behind Cheyenne's skirts." Young Hawk stepped forward, his rifle lowered, but his stance making clear his readiness to raise it. "This is Cheyenne land," he said in carefully enunciated English. "Your paper means nothing here. Law's the law, boy, even out here in Indian country." Fletcher replied with a cold smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Your law," Red Elk spoke for the first time, his deep voice carrying the weight of authority. "Not Cheyenne law." The mounted figure outside shifted position, drawing Red Elk's attention. Though the rider's face remained largely hidden, Helena noticed something in the person's posture that seemed oddly familiar. A cold sensation crawled up her spine as fragments of recognition began assembling themselves in her mind. Rawlins stepped forward impatiently. "Listen here," he said, his hand now openly resting on his pistol. "That woman stole money from her employer. We're authorized to bring her in." "I stole nothing," Helena cried, her voice breaking. "It's a lie. Mr. Barkley refused to pay me what he owed after Carl died. He's the thief." Fletcher's eyes narrowed. "That's not what the warrant says. And Mr. Barkley's a respectable businessman who pays good money for thieves to be brought to justice. For bounties, he creates himself." Helena spat with surprising venom despite her weakened state. Red Elk raised a hand, silencing the exchange. "This woman came seeking water. She is a guest of the Cheyenne now. Hand her over, Chief, and we'll be on our way. No trouble for your people." Fletcher demanded, his friendly facade slipping to reveal the threat beneath. "And if I refuse?" Red Elk's question hung in the air, tension thickening with each passing moment. Fletcher's response was to draw his revolver and fire a shot into the ceiling. Splinters rained down as women and children scattered to the edges of the room. Young Hawk and the other warriors immediately raised their rifles, creating a standoff. "Next one won't go into your ceiling," Fletcher warned, aiming toward Red Elk. The mounted figure suddenly spurred forward into the doorway. As sunlight illuminated the rider's eyes above the concealing scarf, Helena felt a jolt of recognition so powerful it momentarily stole her breath. Those eyes, she knew those eyes. They had shared meals and confidences around campfires during the long journey west. Eyes that had once feigned friendship, but now held nothing but cold triumph. "Elsa." Helena whispered, disbelief warring with dawning horror. In that moment of recognition and distraction, Helena made an instinctive decision. She darted toward the back entrance of the trading post, clutching the recovered vodka bottle that she'd grabbed from the shelf as she passed. Fletcher cursed and fired wildly, the bullet splintering a support beam, as Young Hawk returned fire, forcing the bounty hunters to dive for cover. Outside, a horse tied at the edge of the post reared in panic at the gunfire, breaking free and bolting directly into Helena's path as she emerged from the back. She froze, staring at the terrified animal charging toward her, her exhausted mind unable to command her legs to move. A blur of movement from her left, one of the Cheyenne warriors lunged forward, shoving Helena roughly aside. The horse clipped him instead, sending him spinning to the ground. As Helena scrambled to her knees, another shot rang out. The warrior who had saved her jerked violently, blood blooming from his shoulder, where Rawlins' bullet had found its mark. "Stop shooting," Helena screamed, raising her hands. "I'll go with you. Just stop." Fletcher and Rawlins paused, weapons still raised. The Cheyenne warriors maintained their defensive positions, rifles aimed steadily at the bounty hunters. The mysterious rider, Elsa Helena, was now certain remained in the doorway, observing with unnervingly calm eyes above her concealing scarf. Red Elk stepped forward, his raised hand commanding silence. "Enough," he said, looking between Helena and the injured warrior. "No more blood today." The wounded Cheyenne warrior, Strongheart Helena soon learned, lay on a buffalo hide as she carefully cleaned and bandaged his shoulder wound. Despite the pain evident in his tightly controlled expression, his dark eyes studied her with confusion rather than anger. "Why do you help me?" he asked in careful English as Helena applied a poultice of herbs provided by one of the Cheyenne women. "I am not your people." Helena smiled slightly as she bound his shoulder with a strip of clean cloth. "Neither are they," she replied, nodding toward Fletcher and Rollins, who sat under guard near the trading post entrance. "People are not only their tribe or country. You risked yourself to save me. That deserves care in return." The events following the shooting had unfolded with surprising restraint on both sides. Fletcher and Rollins, realizing they were outmatched inside the Cheyenne trading post, had agreed to a temporary truce while the situation was resolved. Their weapons had been confiscated, though they remained technically free, albeit under the watchful eyes of young Hawk and 2 other warriors. Elsa had dismounted, but remained apart, her face still partially concealed by the scarf, though she had lowered it enough to confirm her identity. She had spoken little, but her eyes followed Helena's movements with an intensity that raised the hairs on the back of Helena's neck. Red Elk crouched beside Helena as she finished tending Strongheart's wound. "You have skill with injuries," he observed. Helena nodded. "At the mining camp, there were always accidents. I helped the doctor when extra hands were needed." She wiped her bloodied fingers on a cloth, suddenly acutely aware of her own thirst again. The burst of energy that had allowed her to tend Strongheart was fading, leaving tremors in her hands and spots dancing at the edges of her vision. Red Elk noticed immediately. He took a water skin from a nearby warrior and held it to her lips. "Drink," he commanded gently. Slowly, Helena took careful sips, fighting her body's desperate urge to gulp the life-giving liquid. When she had drunk enough to ease her immediate distress, Red Elk set the water skin aside. "Now," he said, his voice low enough that the bounty hunters couldn't overhear, "tell me why these men hunt you with paper." Helena gathered her thoughts, weighing how much to share with this man who had offered shelter when she had nothing to give in return. Something in his steady gaze convinced her that complete honesty was her only viable path. "My fiancé and I were traveling to the Blue Creek mining camp." She began, her voice stronger now that her throat had been moistened. "Carl had a job waiting. He was killed when our wagon train was attacked by outlaws 3 days' journey from here." Red Elk nodded, unsurprised. "We heard of this attack in Wolf Canyon. The news travels fast across these lands." Helena looked at him sharply. "Yes, exactly there. How did you—" "Continue your story," Red Elk interrupted gently. Helena swallowed her questions and complied. "When I reached the camp alone, the owner, Mr. Barkley, refused to pay Carl's wages. He said without Carl, there was no job and no payment owed. I argued that Carl had correspondence promising payment upon arrival. Barkley tore up the letters and ordered me to leave." She paused for another small sip when Red Elk offered the water skin again. "That night, someone broke into Barkley's office and stole money from his safe. He immediately accused me, though I was sleeping in the women's boarding house. By morning, he had created that wanted poster and hired bounty hunters." Young Hawk, who had approached silently during her story, looked skeptical. "Why would this man blame you for theft he cannot prove? Because the $50 bounty is less than the $100 he owed Carl." Helena answered, her voice hardening with the injustice of it. "He profits from my capture, and no one questions a mining company owner against a foreign woman alone." Red Elk's expression remained impassive, but Helena sensed he was processing her story against some internal measure she couldn't fathom. His next question caught her off guard. "The woman with them," he said, nodding discreetly toward Elsa. You know her. It wasn't a question, but Helena nodded. Elsa Weber. We traveled west on the same wagon train. She and her brother disappeared during the outlaw attack. I thought they were killed or taken, and she was close to your Carl. Red Elk asked with unexpected perception. Helena's eyes widened slightly. How did you know? I see how your face changes when you speak their names together. Red Elk replied simply. Even enemies were once something else to each other. Helena felt a flush creep into her cheeks. Carl knew Elsa before me. They were from the same village in Germany. She hesitated, then added with painful honesty, I believe he cared for her once. Before me. Young Hawk exchanged a meaningful glance with Red Elk. And now she hunts you with these men, he observed. This is not coincidence. No. Helena agreed, the pieces beginning to assemble themselves into a pattern she should have seen earlier. I don't believe it is. Outside, Fletcher's voice called out with forced joviality. Getting awful late, Chief. Might be best for everyone if we settled this business and got on our way before dark. Red Elk rose smoothly to his feet. They grow impatient, he observed. But patience is a warrior's greatest weapon. He turned to young Hawk. Watch them carefully. They will try something before nightfall. As Red Elk moved away to speak with his warriors, Helena found her gaze drawn to the vodka bottle, still intact despite the chaos. She reached for it, finding comfort in its solid weight and connection to Carl. How strange that this token from their journey together might now be her only salvation, a trading piece for the water and protection she so desperately needed. Chief, she called softly as Red Elk passed. When he turned, she held up the bottle. I still wish to trade. For the water, for the help you've given me. Red Elk studied the bottle. A curious expression crossing his features, not surprise, Helena realized, but confirmation of something he had suspected. We will discuss trade when this matter is settled, he said finally. For now, rest. Gather your strength. The coming hours may demand much from all of us. As Red Elk returned to organizing the trading post's defense, Helena couldn't shake the feeling that he knew far more about her situation, perhaps even about Carl, than he was revealing. The thought should have been unsettling, but instead she found it strangely comforting. In this unfamiliar wilderness, where death had stalked her for days, perhaps she had stumbled upon someone who could make sense of the tragedy that had befallen her. Helena leaned back against the wall, conserving her strength as Red Elk had advised. Outside, the bounty hunters continued their restless movements, and somewhere beyond them, the vast Wyoming frontier stretched endlessly under the merciless sun, and the same sun that had nearly claimed her life hours earlier. The irony wasn't lost on her, that her salvation had come not from the civilization she had journeyed so far to reach, but from the savages that same civilization had taught her to fear. Darkness fell across the trading post with the sudden intensity common to the high plains. One moment the world was bathed in the golden glow of sunset. The next, deep purple shadows enveloped the landscape, bringing with them a profound silence, broken only by the soft crackling of the fire inside. Helena awoke from a light doze to find the trading post transformed for nighttime defense. Women and children had been moved to the center of the structure, while warriors took up positions near windows and doorways. Red Elk moved among his people with quiet authority, speaking brief words of encouragement or giving tactical instructions with economical gestures. Outside, Fletcher and Rollins had built a small fire, their forms occasionally visible, as they moved between it and the shadows. Elsa remained a more enigmatic presence, sometimes silhouetted against the firelight, sometimes disappearing into darkness for long stretches that made the Cheyenne warriors visibly uneasy. Young Hawk approached, crouching beside Helena. They have surrounded the trading post, he informed her quietly. 2 men circle constantly, watching for weakness. And Elsa, Helena asked, The woman stays mostly by the fire. She watches this building like a hawk watches a rabbit. Young Hawk's expression darkened. She is dangerous, this one. Not like the men who are simple hunters. Her eyes hold deeper purpose. Helena nodded, remembering the calculating intelligence that had always set Elsa apart during their journey west. While other women had struggled with frontier hardships, Elsa had adapted with remarkable ease, as though the harsh land suited something in her nature. You should eat. Young Hawk continued, offering a small wooden bowl containing strips of dried meat and what appeared to be wild berries. The chief says you will need strength before this night ends. Helena accepted the food gratefully, though her stomach clenched with anxiety. What does he expect to happen? Young Hawk's expression gave away nothing. The chief sees patterns where others see only chaos. He replied cryptically, "Eat, drink, be ready." As Young Hawk moved away, Helena ate slowly, conscious of her body's fragile recovery from near-fatal dehydration. The food was simple but revitalizing, and the small sips of water she took between bites continued the gradual process of bringing her body back from the edge of catastrophe. Her mind, however, raced with questions. Why had Elsa joined the bounty hunters? Was it truly about the theft accusation or something deeper? And what did Red Elk know that he wasn't sharing? The sound of approaching footsteps pulled her from these thoughts. Red Elk settled cross-legged beside her, his face illuminated by the fire's glow. Despite the tension surrounding them, his expression remained composed, his eyes alert but not anxious. "Your strength returns," he observed, noting the empty food bowl. Helena nodded. "Thanks to your people's care. Tell me about Carl Schaefer." Red Elk said, the abrupt change of subject catching Helena off guard. "What do you want to know?" she asked cautiously. "What kind of man was he?" Red Elk's gaze was penetrating, as though he could compare her answer against some internal standard of truth. Helena considered the question carefully. Carl was practical. Not a dreamer, but a planner. He saw America as a place to build something lasting, not to get rich quickly and return to Germany. She smiled faintly at a memory. He used to say that gold in the hills meant money in our pockets, but it was the land itself that held true value. Something flickered in Red Elk's eyes, recognition perhaps. Did he speak of his past, his travels before you met? "Some," Helena replied, wondering at these specific questions. He worked in factories in the East for several years. He mentioned Alaska once or twice, the cold, the vastness of it. She frowned slightly, recalling a particular conversation. He said he'd found friends in unexpected places during his time there, though he never elaborated. Red Elk nodded as though her words confirmed something. "And the vodka bottle, how did it come to you?" "A Russian sailor gave it to us in New York before we joined the wagon train west," Helena explained. "He said it would be valuable for trading in certain places. Carl seemed particularly interested in it, though I thought little of it at the time. Carl recognized its value beyond the spirits it contains," Red Elk commented. "How would you know that?" Helena asked, unable to contain her curiosity any longer. Red Elk was silent for a long moment, weighing his response. Finally, he said, "Because Carl Schaefer traded with us before. Not at this post, but with our people to the north. He spoke of returning with a woman who would help build bridges between our worlds." Helena stared at him in disbelief. "That's impossible. Carl never mentioned knowing any native peoples. He never spoke of trading with the Cheyenne. Perhaps he was waiting for the right moment," Red Elk suggested gently, "to see if your heart was open to such connections." Before Helena could process this revelation, a commotion outside drew their attention. Fletcher's voice, louder and more aggressive than before, called into the night. "Time's running out, Chief. We're giving you one more chance to hand over the thief before things get ugly." Red Elk rose smoothly to his feet, moving to the window to assess the situation. Helena followed more slowly, her mind still reeling from what he had told her about Carl. Outside, Fletcher and Rollins had positioned themselves strategically, their campfire deliberately placed to cast light on the trading post, while leaving them in relative shadow. The arrangement wasn't lost on Red Elk. "They are not as clever as they believe," he murmured to young Hawk, who had joined them at the window. "They think we cannot move beyond our walls without being seen." Young Hawk nodded, a grim smile touching his lips. "Two warriors have already circled behind them. They wait only for your signal." A shot suddenly rang out, the bullet embedding itself in the trading post's wooden wall with a solid thunk that made Helena flinch. "That was a warning," Fletcher shouted. "Next one goes through a window." Red Elk gave a barely perceptible nod to young Hawk, who slipped out through a back entrance with several warriors, leaving only 3 inside with the women and children. Helena moved to the window, careful to stay hidden as she peered out. In the firelight, she could see Fletcher and Rollins with weapons drawn. Elsa remained partially in shadow, still wearing the concealing scarf, though it had been lowered enough to reveal more of her face. "I need to see her clearly." Helena whispered more to herself than to Red Elk, who had moved beside her. "I need to understand why she's doing this." "Wait," he cautioned, laying a restraining hand on her arm. "My warriors move into position." Minutes passed in tense silence. Then, with startling suddenness, war cries erupted from the darkness beyond the bounty hunters' camp. Fletcher and Rollins whirled, firing blindly into the night. Elsa's horse reared in panic, nearly unseating her. In the confusion, young Hawk and 4 warriors charged from different directions, using the darkness as cover. 2 tackled Rollins, disarming him after a brief struggle. Fletcher managed to fire twice more before a thrown tomahawk struck his gun hand, sending his revolver spinning into the dust. Elsa tried to flee, spurring her horse, but another warrior appeared in her path. The horse reared again, and this time she lost her grip and tumbled from the saddle, landing hard with a distinctly feminine cry of pain. The scarf fell away completely, and in the flickering firelight, Helena finally saw the confirmation of what she had suspected. Elsa Weber stared back at her blonde hair, coming loose from its pin's face, contorted with rage and fear. "Elsa!" Helena called out, stepping into the doorway despite Red Elk's warning hand. "It is you." Elsa scrambled to her feet, her blue eyes flashing with emotions too complex to name. "Helena." She acknowledged, her German accent thicker than Helena remembered. "How unfortunate that you're still alive." The naked hostility took Helena aback. "I thought you were dead, or taken by the outlaws during the attack." "My brother and I weren't taken, we escaped." Elsa shot back, her tone venomous. "Unlike your precious Carl, who died playing hero." Fletcher, now on his knees, clutching his injured hand, glared at Elsa. "You know this thief personally. You didn't mention that when you led us to her trail." "It wasn't relevant." Elsa snapped her eyes, never leaving Helena. "I told you she stole from Barkley. That's all you needed to know." Helena stepped fully into the firelight, momentarily forgetting her weakness as indignation flared within her. "I stole nothing." "You know that, Elsa. Why are you doing this?" The Cheyenne warriors maintained their positions, weapons trained on the subdued bounty hunters, but attention split between them and the unfolding drama. Elsa straightened, adjusting her riding jacket with her uninjured hand. "Because you've always taken what should have been mine," she replied, bitterness dripping from each word. "Carl was supposed to be mine. We had an understanding before he met you on that ship." Helena shook her head in disbelief. "That's what this is about, Carl? He's dead, Elsa? And you live." Elsa shot back, her eyes burning with a hatred that seemed to consume her from within. "You live with nothing to show for it, but that bottle of vodka you've been clinging to like a talisman." Red Elk had moved to stand beside Helena, his imposing presence a silent support. "This woman has brought death hunters to our door," he observed quietly. Her heart is filled with poison. Elsa's attention snapped to Red Elk, her expression hardening. Stay out of this, savage. This is between me and her. Young Hawk took a menacing step toward Elsa for the slur, but Red Elk raised a hand, stopping him. Why, Elsa? Helena pressed, struggling to comprehend such hatred. What did I ever do to you except offer friendship? Friendship. Elsa spat the word as though it tasted foul. You took Carl from me, then had the audacity to help me when I needed money at the camp. $30, you lent me $30 when I couldn't pay for lodging, making me indebted to the woman who stole my future. A terrible suspicion began forming in Helena's mind. The stolen money from Barclay's safe, that was you. Elsa's silence was confirmation enough. And you let Barclay blame me. Helena continued, the full betrayal dawning with sickening clarity. You stole the money, then led bounty hunters to capture me for the crime you committed. Fletcher cursed from his position on the ground. You double-crossing snake. You told us she was an easy bounty. She is... Elsa shot back. A foreign woman alone with no one to speak for her. Who would believe her over a mining company owner, over me now that my brother has a position in Barclay's office? Red Elk had heard enough. With a gesture to his warriors, he indicated they should secure the prisoners. Young Hawk and another warrior bound Fletcher and Rollins with leather thongs, while two more approached Elsa. She backed away, reaching into her boot and producing a small Derringer pistol. Stay back. She warned, the weapon shaking slightly in her hand. I'll shoot the first man who touches me. Elsa, don't. Helena pleaded, stepping forward despite her exhaustion. Enough people have been hurt. Because of you. Elsa cried, her control slipping as years of resentment boiled over. Everything was planned perfectly until you stumbled into this trading post instead of dying in the desert like you were supposed to. The accusation hung in the air, damning in its implications. Helena felt as though she'd been physically struck. You wanted me dead, she whispered. Not just captured dead. Of course I did. Elsa replied, her voice suddenly calm, almost conversational. Dead women tell no tales, Helena. Dead women can't contradict the story I told Barclay about how you confessed to me about stealing his money before fleeing. Red Elk moved with surprising speed for a man of his size. Before Elsa could react, he had closed the distance between them, knocked the Derringer from her hand with a powerful strike to her wrist. She cried out as two warriors quickly restrained her. Take them inside. Red Elk ordered. Bind them separately. They are not to speak to each other. As the captives were led into the trading post, Helena stood motionless in the firelight, trying to process the depths of Elsa's betrayal. Red Elk remained beside her, his steady presence an anchor in the storm of her emotions. She was willing to see me hang for her crime, Helena said quietly, because of a man who was already dead. Red Elk's eyes reflected the dancing flames as he considered her words. Hatred consumes like fire, he observed. It burns everything in its path, including the one who carries it. Helena turned to him, tears streaking the dust on her face. What happens now? Cannot now. Red Elk replied, his expression grave. We prepare. Their capture will not go unnoticed. Others will come looking when they do not return. As they turned to enter the trading post, Helena noticed movement at the edge of the firelight, a shadow detaching itself from the deeper darkness beyond and slipping away into the night. She blinked, wondering if her still recovering mind was playing tricks on her. But something in her gut told her that this confrontation was merely a prelude to something far worse. Dawn broke over the Wyoming territory, painting the sky in spectacular hues of orange and purple. Helena had slept fitfully, dreams filled with Carl's dying face and Elsa's venomous accusations. She awoke feeling marginally stronger. Regular small amounts of water and dried meat had begun restoring her body, though her mind remained troubled by the previous night's revelations. The trading post hummed with quiet activity. Women prepared morning meals while warriors maintained vigilant watch on their 3 prisoners secured in separate corners. Fletcher and Rollins maintained sullen silence, occasionally testing their bonds when they thought no one was watching. Elsa alternated between demands to be released and dark warnings about what would happen when her absence was noted at the mining camp. Helena approached Strongheart, who sat upright against a support beam, his wounded shoulder cleaner and less inflamed than the previous night. She knelt beside him, examining his bandages with careful hands. "The wound looks better," she observed. "No signs of infection." Strongheart nodded, his stoic expression softening slightly. "Your medicine is good. The pain is less today." Helena smiled, pleased by his improvement. As she adjusted his bandage, she asked, "Did your people see anyone else outside last night, after the fighting?" Strongheart's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I thought I saw someone at the edge of the firelight," Helena explained, "watching us then slipping away." Strongheart's expression darkened. "I will tell young Hawk. If someone escaped to bring others, we must be ready." Before Helena could respond, Red Elk and Young Hawk entered from their morning scouting. The tension in their bearing was immediately apparent, silencing conversations throughout the trading post. Young Hawk approached Helena directly, his expression grave. Riders approached from the direction of the mining camp. Many riders. Helena's heart sank. Barkley must have sent men when the bounty hunters didn't return. 8 men, Young Hawk confirmed. Armed, they ride with purpose. From her corner, Elsa overheard the exchange. Her laughter, sharp and triumphant, cut through the tension. "You're all dead now," she called out. "Barkley doesn't send men for social visits." Red Elk ignored her, focusing instead on Helena. "The woman speaks with too much satisfaction. She knows something we do not." Helena crossed to where Elsa sat bound, crouching before her former friend. "What aren't you telling us, Elsa? Who are these men?" Elsa smiled, the expression never reaching her eyes. "Barkley's personal militia. Former soldiers who now work for the highest bidder. They won't care about Cheyenne boundaries or claims of innocence." Young Hawk stepped closer, his presence intimidating despite his youth. "How did they find us so quickly?" "Insurance," Elsa replied cryptically. "I always have insurance." Helena studied Elsa's face, noting a gleam of satisfaction that seemed disproportionate even to the dire news. A suspicion formed, and Helena reached forward, suddenly grabbing Elsa's jacket and tearing open a hidden inner pocket. A folded paper fell out, a copy of the wanted poster, but on its back was a crude map showing the location of the Cheyenne trading post, with notes about surrounding terrain and approaches. "You had this ready," Helena whispered, understanding dawning. "You knew exactly where I was going." "Of course I did," Elsa replied, dropping all pretense. "I've been tracking you since you left the wagon train. Did you think it was coincidence that the only water source on your route had gone dry, or that your path kept turning you east, away from the mining camp?" Helena recoiled, as if slapped. "You've been manipulating my journey. Why not just shoot me in the back if you wanted me dead so badly, and risk being seen?" Elsa scoffed. "No, it was much better to let nature do the work. You were supposed to die of thirst in the desert your body never found. But you were always stubborn." The trading post had fallen silent, everyone listening to this cold confession. Even Fletcher and Rollins looked disturbed by the calculated malice in her words. "All this because Carl chose me?" Helena asked, struggling to comprehend such hatred. Elsa's face contorted with rage, her composure finally cracking completely. "Not just Carl. Everything you came to America with. Nothing. And immediately caught the attention of the one man I had spent years cultivating as a way out of our village. Then, at the mining camp, everyone spoke of how brave poor Helena was, coming all that way, only to lose her fiancé." She leaned forward against her bond's voice, dropping to a venomous hiss. You even had the gall to help me with that loan when I was in trouble, $30 that you never let me forget I owed you. $30 when you had nothing yourself. Your pathetic nobility made me look even worse. The revelation hit Helena like a physical blow. This isn't about the money I lent you, she said slowly. This is about pride. Pride, is that what you call it? When someone who should have nothing is treated better than you. When a spinster who caught a man by accident is pitied and helped, while I who planned and worked for years am overlooked. Elsa's voice had risen to a near shout, her controlled facade completely abandoned. You took everything from me without even trying, and still you acted like my friend. Red Elk stepped forward, his expression one of disgust. Enough, he commanded. Your spirit is eaten by jealousy, woman. You shame yourself with these words. As the confrontation unfolded, young Hawk suddenly noticed something alarming about Elsa's appearance. Chief, he said urgently in Cheyenne. Look at her eyes. Something is wrong. Red Elk studied Elsa more carefully, noting her increasingly flushed face and the fine sheen of sweat that had appeared on her forehead despite the morning chill. Her pupils had constricted to pinpoints, and a tremor had begun in her hands. What ails you? He demanded, switching back to English. Elsa's expression twisted into a grimace that might have been intended as a smile. Just a little insurance policy. She managed her breathing, becoming labored. Something to make things interesting. When Barkley arrives, Fletcher's eyes widened with sudden understanding. Damn it all, he exclaimed. She's been taking that stuff again. What stuff? Helena demanded, turning to the bounty hunter. Some concoction from the mining camp, doctor. Fletcher explained, looking genuinely concerned, despite his predicament. She's been dosing herself with small amounts for weeks. Said if she missed her regular dose, the symptoms would make it look like she'd been poisoned by Indians. Helena's blood ran cold as she realized the implications. She's deliberately going into withdrawal to make it look like we poisoned her when Barkley's men arrive. Red Elk's expression was grim. I have seen this before. White man's medicine, opium mixed with other things. She has been poisoning herself slowly to build tolerance, then stopping to create symptoms when needed. The calculated malevolence of the plan stunned Helena. Elsa had not only arranged for backup, but had engineered a situation that would incriminate the Cheyenne regardless of their actions, giving Barkley's men the perfect excuse to attack. But you need help. Helena said, genuine concern overriding her anger as Elsa's condition visibly deteriorated. Where are the leaves you've been taking? Elsa shook her head, sweat flying with emotion. Too late. She gasped, genuine panic beginning to show through her bravado. Need real medicine now. Red Elk stood, his decision made. Young Hawk, prepare our people to move deeper into our territory. We cannot be here when these men arrive. What about the prisoners? Young Hawk asked, gesturing to Fletcher and Rollins. Bring them, Red Elk ordered. They may be useful. Before Young Hawk could begin organizing the evacuation, a warrior burst through the door, his expression urgent as he reported to Red Elk in rapid Cheyenne. Helena caught the word for fire, repeated several times, sending a chill down her spine even before Red Elk translated. The water storage, he explained grimly. Someone has set it ablaze. Helena rushed outside with Red Elk and several warriors to find the small wooden structure behind the trading post engulfed in flames. Black smoke billowed into the clear morning sky, a beacon that would surely draw Barkley's approaching men even faster. How did this happen? She asked as warriors formed a line, passing containers of sand and dirt to smother the growing fire. Strong Heart, who had insisted on helping despite his injured shoulder, pointed toward the trading post. Elsa, he said grimly. She must have had something hidden. A flint, perhaps. Helena's blood ran cold. She's starting a fire while she's still inside the trading post. She could burn to death herself. Her hatred burns hotter than any fire. Strongheart replied, wincing as he tossed sand onto the flames. Inside the trading post, Helena found Elsa free of her bonds, clutching a small flint striker in her trembling hands. Fletcher and Rollins remained secured, watching with expressions that mixed fear and morbid fascination. "What have you done?" Helena demanded, advancing on her former friend. Elsa laughed the sound, halfway to hysteria. "Solving problems." She gasped, clearly suffering, but driven by a determination that overrode her physical distress. No water, no trading post, no Cheyenne. Helena lunged for the striker, but Elsa evaded her, backing toward the trading post's supplies. "Stay back," she warned, "or I'll light everything, here too." As they circled each other in a desperate dance, Helena realized that Elsa had truly gone beyond reason. The combination of withdrawal symptoms and long-nurtured hatred had pushed her into a place where her own survival meant nothing compared to Helena's destruction. "Think, Elsa," Helena pleaded. "You'll die too. Better than watching you live." Elsa replied, striking the flint. A spark jumped to her palm, and she winced, but didn't drop the striker. In that moment of distraction, Helena charged forward, tackling Elsa to the ground. The striker flew from Elsa's hand, skidding across the floor as both women grappled desperately. Despite her weakened condition from withdrawal, Elsa fought with the strength of madness, scratching and clawing at Helena's face. "I hate you," she screamed, drawing blood from Helena's cheek. "Everything was mine until you came." Helena caught Elsa's wrists, pinning them to the floor with effort. "Carl is dead," she shouted back, her own anger finally breaking through. "Dead? What does any of this matter now?" "It matters because you live," Elsa cried, her face contorted with rage and pain. "You who took everything from me." Red Elk and Young Hawk burst into the trading post, quickly assessing the situation. Young Hawk moved to secure the flint striker, while Red Elk pulled Helena off Elsa, who continued to thrash and scream incoherently. "The water storage burns beyond saving," Red Elk informed Helena grimly. "Most water is lost." Helena wiped blood from her cheek, her breathing heavy from exertion. "She planned this. Even in withdrawal, she planned to destroy your water supply." Red Elk nodded, his expression grave. "Without water, we cannot stay. Not in this heat." That was her goal, Helena realized aloud. To force everyone into the open when Barkley's men arrive. Outside, a warrior called urgently in Cheyenne. Red Elk's body tensed as he exchanged a meaningful look with Young Hawk. "They are here," he translated simply. "Barkley's riders have arrived." Harold Barkley sat astride his horse at the head of 8 mounted men, his expensive suit and polished boots making him look absurdly out of place in the frontier landscape. Yet there was nothing absurd about the cold calculation in his eyes as he surveyed the trading post and the small group that had emerged to meet him, Red Elk, Helena, and 3 Cheyenne warriors. Behind the trading post, black smoke continued to rise from the burning water storage structure, a stark visual representation of the crisis unfolding. Without that water, the trading post was effectively uninhabitable in the summer heat, exactly as Elsa had planned. "Well, well." Barkley called out, his voice carrying easily in the morning air. "If it isn't the little German thief and her savage friends." His eyes narrowed as he took in the scene. "Having some trouble, are we?" Helena stood her ground, though her heart pounded painfully against her ribs. This was the man who had refused to pay Carl's wages, who had falsely accused her of theft, who had sent bounty hunters to drag her back to face unjust punishment. Yet now, meeting him face to face, she sensed there was something more at stake than $50 allegedly stolen from a safe. "Mr. Barkley?" she replied, keeping her voice steady. "You've come a long way to find the wrong person." Barkley dismounted slowly, his movements deliberately casual, though his eyes remained alert and calculating. "Wrong person." The wanted poster has your name on it, girl. And I see you've made quite a mess here, turning Indians against white folks, setting fires." He gestured toward the smoke. "That's hanging offense territory. The woman you sent to find me, Elsa Weber, is the one who stole your money." Helena responded, watching his reaction carefully. She admitted it freely last night in front of multiple witnesses. Barkley's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Not surprise, Helena noted with growing unease, but irritation, as if she'd spoiled a performance by missing her cue. "That's so," Barkley replied, glancing toward the trading post where Elsa was being held inside. "Doesn't look like she's admitting much of anything at the moment. What have you savages done to her?" Red Elk stepped forward, his tall figure commanding attention despite being outnumbered. "She poisons herself," he stated clearly, "to make you believe we did it." One of Barkley's men spat on the ground. "Chief here speaks pretty good English for someone who needs a trading post in the middle of nowhere." "I attended your government school," Red Elk replied evenly, "before I returned to my people. I know both worlds and the lies that bridge them." Barkley's patience was clearly wearing thin. "Enough talk. I've come for two things: the German thief and any Cheyenne involved in harboring her. The rest of you can crawl back to your tribe." As the confrontation escalated, young Hawk emerged from the trading post with Fletcher and Rollins, whose bonds had been cut. Both men rubbed their wrists, eyeing the Cheyenne warriors warily as they moved to join Barkley's group. "Tell him," Helena urged Fletcher. "Tell Mr. Barkley what Elsa admitted about stealing the money." Fletcher looked from Helena to Barkley, his expression calculating. "She did say something about that," he acknowledged slowly. "Said she took the money and framed this one here." Barkley's face remained impassive, but Helena caught another flicker of annoyance in his eyes. "Is that right?" he asked Fletcher, his tone oddly flat. Fletcher seemed to read something in Barkley's manner that Helena couldn't. He straightened slightly, adjusting his answer. "Well, she was raving, you understand. Withdrawal makes folks say all kinds of things. That's not what you said last night." Young Hawk interjected sharply. "You heard her clearly. She admitted everything." A cold sensation settled in Helena's stomach as she watched the exchange. Something was wrong. Barkley was barely reacting to information that should have shocked or at least concerned him. "You already knew," she said suddenly, the realization dawning. "You knew Elsa took the money." Barkley's eyes snapped to hers, sharp and dangerous now. "Careful with your accusations, girl." But Helena had seen enough to be certain. "You knew, and you created the wanted poster anyway. Why, what do you gain by having me captured for a theft I didn't commit?" The mining company owner's patience finally snapped. "What I gain is no concern of yours," he said coldly. "What you need to worry about is what happens next." He turned to his men. "Secure the thief and the Weber woman. We're leaving." The Cheyenne warriors tensed their weapons, rising slightly, but not yet aimed. Red Elk remained calm, his voice carrying clearly across the tense standoff. "This woman is under Cheyenne protection. She stays unless she chooses to leave." Barkley laughed, the sound utterly devoid of humor. "Protection. Look around you, Chief. Your trading post is burning, your water's gone, and you're outnumbered. What exactly are you protecting her with?" As if to underscore his point, a section of the water storage structure collapsed with a crash, sending a fresh plume of smoke into the air. The fire had spread faster than anyone had anticipated now, threatening the trading post itself as the wind shifted. Helena looked from Barkley's smugly confident face to Red Elk's stoic one, then to young Hawk and the other warriors awaiting their chief's signal. These people had sheltered her, given her precious water when she was dying, and treated her with dignity when her own countrymen had abandoned her. Now they stood ready to fight, perhaps die, to protect her from a false accusation. She couldn't allow it. "I'll go with you," Helena announced, stepping forward. on one condition. Barkley raised an eyebrow. You're not exactly in a position to make conditions, girl. Leave the Cheyenne in peace. Helena continued as if he hadn't spoken. They've done nothing wrong. The fire was Elsa's doing. I'll testify to that in any court. Helena, no, young hawk, protested, moving to her side. You are innocent. We can fight. Helena turned to him, her expression resolute. And many will die. For what a false accusation that will follow me wherever I go. She looked back to Barkley. Well, Mr. Barkley, do we have an agreement? I go willingly. The Cheyenne are left alone. Barkley studied her for a long moment, then nodded curtly. Fine. They can keep their miserable trading post, what's left of it. He gestured to two of his men. Take her. As the men approached, Helena reached for the vodka bottle she had kept close throughout this ordeal. Red Elk watched her with an unreadable expression as she clutched the bottle to her chest, the last possession she had carried across the frontier. Chief Red Elk, Helena said formally, turning to face him. Thank you for the water that saved my life. I wish I could have repaid your kindness better. Red Elk stepped forward, his imposing height, forcing Barkley's men to pause momentarily. He reached out and took Helena's free hand in both of his. You have courage, he said simply. Remember that when these men show their true faces. Their eyes met in a moment of silent communication that conveyed far more than words could express. Then Helena felt herself being pulled away, roughly, her wrists bound before her, as she was lifted onto a horse. As Barkley's group prepared to depart, a sharp crack split the air, not gunfire, but the sound of wood giving way under intense heat. All heads turned toward the trading post as flames suddenly licked upward from its roof. The fire from the water storage had spread, carried by the shifting wind. The trading post. Young Hawk shouted, already running toward the building. Chaos erupted as the Cheyenne warriors abandoned their defensive positions to battle the new threat, while Barkley's men seized the opportunity to secure Helena firmly on her horse. In the confusion, Helena watched in astonishment as Red Elk turned and walked deliberately toward the burning trading post. Chief, she screamed, struggling against her bonds. Red Elk. But the Cheyenne leader disappeared into the flaming doorway without hesitation, an action so unexpected that even Barkley's men momentarily paused in their preparations. Looks like the chief decided to go down with his ship, one of Barkley's men commented callously. Shut up and ride, Barkley snapped, spurring his horse to a faster pace. As they crested a small rise, putting the burning trading post behind them, Helena felt as though her heart had turned to stone in her chest. Red Elk's apparent suicide made no sense. He had been so calm, so measured in his actions throughout their confrontation. Why would he choose such a pointless, dramatic end? Unless a small voice whispered in the back of her mind. It wasn't pointless at all. Unless he had entered the fire for a reason only he understood. The thought gave her a fragile thread of hope to cling to as the horses carried her away from the trading post and toward whatever fate awaited her at the mining camp. A fate that, given Barkley's suspicious behavior, she suspected would be far worse than a simple false accusation of theft. The ride to Blue Creek, a mining camp, stretched throughout the afternoon, the sun beating down mercilessly on the riders. Helena's throat ached from renewed thirst, her captors providing only minimal water despite the day's heat. Her wrists chafed against the rough rope bindings as Barkley's group maintained a punishing pace. By late afternoon, the mining camp appeared on the horizon, a sprawling collection of rough wooden buildings, tents, and equipment, carved into the side of a rugged hill. The main street bustled with activity. As miners returned from their shifts, their faces and clothes blackened with coal dust. Many stopped to stare as Barkley's procession entered, whispers spreading quickly as Helena was identified as the German thief from the wanted posters plastered throughout the camp. They rode directly to the largest building, Barkley's office and personal quarters, a 2-story wooden structure that stood apart from the miners' accommodations. Its painted exterior and glass windows marked it as a place of privilege in the crude frontier setting. "Take her inside." Barkley ordered 2 of his men as they dismounted. "And find Doc Wilson. Tell him we need him for 2 patients, our thief here and Elsa Weber, when she turns up." Helena's head snapped up at this. "You expect Elsa to return after everything?" Barkley's smile was cold as he swung down from his saddle. "Elsa always returns when she's done what she's told, though she does have a flair for the dramatic that sometimes complicates matters." The casual confirmation of Elsa as Barkley's agent sent a chill through Helena's already trembling body. This had never been about a personal vendetta between 2 women. It was something larger, something involving Barkley's own schemes. The interior of Barkley's office was surprisingly luxurious. A large desk of polished oaks dominated the room, while bookshelves lined one wall, and a liquor cabinet stood prominently in the corner. Maps of the surrounding territory covered another wall, with certain areas circled in red ink that Helena couldn't decipher from where she sat, forced into a straight-backed wooden chair. Barkley entered shortly after removing his riding gloves with deliberate casualness. He poured himself a generous measure of whiskey before settling behind his desk, regarding Helena with calculating eyes. "You're probably wondering what this is all about." He began swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "Why a busy man like me would go to such trouble over a simple German immigrant." Helena met his gaze, steadily summoning what strength remained in her depleted body. "I suspect it has nothing to do with $50 allegedly stolen from your safe." Barkley chuckled, the sound devoid of warmth. "Clever girl. No, this is about something far more valuable." He took a sip of his whiskey, his eyes never leaving her face. "Tell me, did your late fiancé ever mention his previous work in Alaska?" The question caught Helena off guard. Carl had mentioned Alaska once or twice, but only in passing, the cold, the vastness of it. "Nothing about work there." "Alaska," she repeated cautiously. "Carl worked in factories in the East before returning to Germany. He never mentioned working in Alaska. Didn't he?" Barkley leaned forward, his expression suddenly intense. "Strange. Because a man matching Carl Schaefer's description was part of a very particular expedition in Alaska 3 years ago, an expedition that discovered something quite remarkable before most of its members died under mysterious circumstances." Helena's mind reeled at the implications. Had Carl lied to her about his past? Was there more to her steady, practical fiancé than she had ever suspected? "I don't understand," she said honestly. "What does this have to do with accusing me of theft?" Barkley sat back, satisfaction evident in his posture. "Your fiancé was a survivor of the Yukon Valley expedition, a privately funded venture that discovered gold deposits richer than anything seen since the California strike of '49. But not just any gold, a unique form found nowhere else identifiable by distinct mineral inclusions." He reached into his desk drawer and removed a small leather pouch, which he tossed onto the desk between them. 3 of these nuggets were found sewn into Carl Schaefer's coat collar after the outlaw attack on your wagon train. My men searched the bodies before the survivors buried them." Helena stared at the pouch, her world tilting on its axis. "That's impossible. Carl never had gold. We barely had enough money for supplies." "Oh, he had gold," Barkley countered with cold certainty. "But more importantly, he had a map to the Yukon deposit that's worth more than this entire territory." His eyes hardened. "That map is what I want, Helena, and I believe you have it." "I don't have any map." Helena protested, genuine confusion in her voice. "Carl never gave me anything like that." Barkley studied her face closely, searching for signs of deception. "The gold proves he was part of the expedition. The fact that he kept it hidden proves he knew its value. 3 nuggets wouldn't be worth hiding so carefully. They're merely samples proof of the larger find." He stood circling the desk to loom over her. "Carl Schaefer was a careful man. he wouldn't have traveled with the map on his person. No, he would have entrusted it to someone else. Someone unassuming, someone who wouldn't attract attention. His gaze bore into hers. His fiancée, perhaps. Helena shook her head vehemently. He gave me nothing. Search me if you don't believe it. Oh, we will. Barkley assured her, his tone chilling. But first, I want to know what he told you. Any casual comments about locations, landmarks, rivers in Alaska? Anything that seemed insignificant at the time? Nothing. Helena insisted, frustration mounting. Carl spoke of our future here working in your mine. He never mentioned Alaska or gold or maps. Barkley's fist crashed down on the desk, causing Helena to flinch. Every man has his breaking point, girl. Every woman, too. I've invested too much in this search to be stopped now. He moved closer, his face inches from hers. You know what happens to thieves in mining camps, especially foreign ones with no connections, no one to miss them. His voice dropped to a menacing whisper. They disappear. Sometimes in abandoned mine shafts, sometimes in unmarked graves beyond the camp perimeter. Helena fought to control her growing fear, clinging to the knowledge that she truly didn't have what he wanted. Threatening me won't produce a map that doesn't exist. She said, her voice remarkably steady despite the circumstances. A knock at the door interrupted their standoff. One of Barkley's men entered, followed by an older man carrying a medical bag, presumably Doc Wilson. The doctor was in his 60s with a shock of white hair and hands that trembled slightly, whether from age or whiskey was unclear. He eyed Helena with professional detachment. This the German girl? He asked Barkley, setting his bag on a side table. Yes? Barkley confirmed. Check her over. She's been in Cheyenne hands for at least a day, possibly drugged or mistreated. Helena bristled at the implication. The only ones who mistreated me were your bounty hunters and Elsa Weber, who deliberately led me away from water sources so I would die of thirst. Doc Wilson raised an eyebrow at this, but said nothing as he approached. His examination was cursory, checking her eyes, feeling her forehead for fever, noting the scratches on her face from her fight with Elsa. She's dehydrated and exhausted, he reported to Barkley, but otherwise unharmed. No signs of drugs or poison. He turned back to Helena. You've been giving yourself small amounts of water, gradually increasing. Helena nodded. The Cheyenne Chief taught me to drink slowly. He saved my life. Doc Wilson grunted, returning to his bag. Man knows his business then. Most folk would have gulped it down and died from the shock to their systems. He extracted a small bottle of tonic and handed it to Helena. Take a spoonful of this every few hours. It'll help with the dehydration. What about Elsa Weber? Barkley asked, redirecting the doctor's attention. When she returns, she'll likely be in withdrawal. Doc Wilson's expression darkened. Again, I told you last time, Barkley, that woman's playing with fire using that concoction the way she does. One of these days, she won't come back from it. Just be ready. Barkley instructed dismissively. She's been useful. The doctor packed his bag with a disapproving huff. I'll be at the saloon if she turns up, he said, heading for the door. He paused beside Helena, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Don't take too much of that tonic at once, girl. Makes the heart race something fierce. After the doctor departed, Barkley resumed his interrogation with renewed intensity. Helena maintained her denial of any knowledge about a gold map, growing increasingly frustrated as Barkley circled the same questions from different angles. Your obstinacy is impressive. Barkley finally commented, returning to his desk chair. But perhaps I've been approaching this wrong. Let me tell you what I know. He leaned back, steepling his fingers. Carl Schaefer was one of 3 survivors of the Yukon expedition. The other 2 died within a year, mysterious accidents, both of them. Carl was smarter. He disappeared back to Germany, laying low, until he thought it was safe to return. Barkley's eyes narrowed. But someone was watching for him. Someone knew he'd eventually come back for the gold. When word reached me that a Karl Schaefer had joined a wagon train west with a new German fiancée, I knew my patience had paid off. A terrible suspicion formed in Helena's mind. "You had our wagon train attacked," she whispered, the pieces falling into place. "You had Karl killed." Barkley waved a dismissive hand. "I merely informed certain interested parties where the wagon train would be passing. What they chose to do with that information was their business." Cold horror washed over Helena as the full extent of Barkley's machinations became clear. "And Elsa, was she working for you from the beginning?" "Elsa Weber and her brother have been in my employ for some time," Barkley confirmed with a small smile. She was quite eager to help when she learned her former sweetheart had returned with a new woman. Jealousy makes for reliable motivation, don't you find? Before Helena could respond, the door burst open as one of Barkley's men rushed in. "Riders approaching from the east," he reported breathlessly. "Indians by the look of them." Barkley was on his feet instantly, anger flashing across his features. "How many?" "At least a dozen. Cheyenne warriors, all armed." "Sound the alarm," Barkley ordered. "Get every man with a gun to the eastern perimeter. Now." As the man rushed out, Barkley turned back to Helena, his expression thunderous. "Your savage friends have made a grave mistake coming here," he snarled, pulling a revolver from his desk drawer. "They're riding to their deaths." Helena's heart pounded painfully against her ribs. "Please," she begged, "they're just looking for me. Let me go to them. Explain that I came willingly. There doesn't need to be bloodshed." "Oh, there very much needs to be bloodshed," Barkley countered coldly. "A lesson must be taught about interfering with my business." He grabbed Helena's arm, yanking her roughly to her feet. "And you're going to watch it happen." He dragged her through the office and onto the small porch where they had a clear view of the camp's eastern approach. Men were rushing to defensive positions, grabbing rifles and taking cover behind buildings and water troughs. The atmosphere had transformed from end-of-day weariness to battle-ready tension in moments. Helena squinted against the setting sun, searching the distance for the approaching riders. When she spotted them, her breath caught in her throat. Leading the group of Cheyenne warriors was a familiar tall figure in an eagle-feathered war bonnet. Red Elk, very much alive, despite having walked into the burning trading post hours earlier. Beside him rode young Hawk and several other warriors Helena recognized. All were armed with rifles and bows, their faces painted for battle expressions grimly determined. "Red Elk," she whispered, relief and fear warring within her. The chief had survived, but had come into a trap that could cost him and his warriors their lives. Barkley kept his grip on Helena's arm, using his free hand to aim his revolver at the approaching riders. Around them, the miners and Barkley's men had formed a defensive line, all weapons trained on the Cheyenne. "Hold your fire until I give the word," Barkley called out. "Let them get closer." The Cheyenne riders approached steadily, showing no fear, despite the obvious trap awaiting them. When they were within 50 yards of the camp's edge, Red Elk raised his hand, and the group halted in perfect unison. For a long moment, silence reigned across the distance between the two groups. Then Red Elk urged his horse forward alone, stopping when he was close enough for his voice to carry clearly. "I come for the woman," he announced, his deep voice carrying authority despite being outnumbered. "Helena Bauer?" Barkley's grip on Helena's arm tightened painfully. "You're too late, Chief," he called back mockingly. "She's my prisoner, now charged with theft and aiding hostiles against white settlers." Red Elk's expression remained impassive. "She is innocent of these charges. This is known to all who heard the truth at our trading post." "Your trading post?" Barkley laughed. "That pile of ashes back in the hills? Not much of a witness stand now, is it?" Red Elk ignored the taunt. "Release her," he demanded simply, "or face consequences." The miners shifted nervously at this, exchanging glances. Taking on a dozen armed Cheyenne warriors wasn't what most of them had signed up for when they came to dig for coal. Barkley sensed the wavering resolve and raised his voice. "Any man who stands with me against these savages gets a bonus in his next pay packet, double wages for a month." The financial incentive stiffened the miners' courage, their weapons rising with renewed determination. Helena felt her last hope fading as the standoff intensified. "Please," she begged Barkley, keeping her voice low. "They'll die, all of them, for nothing." "Not for nothing," Barkley replied coldly. "For attempting to interfere with legal justice, and as a warning to others who might try the same." On the open ground before the camp, Red Elk remained motionless on his horse, seemingly unaffected by the dozens of weapons aimed in his direction. Behind him, the Cheyenne warriors waited with equally stoic patience. "Last chance, Chief," Barkley called out. "Take your men and go back to your reservation where you belong. The woman stays." Red Elk's response was to raise his right hand high above his head, not in surrender, but in a clear signal to his warriors. From behind the Cheyenne riders, a single figure emerged, walking slowly into view. Helena gasped audibly as she recognized the newcomer, Elsa Weber, her face haggard from withdrawal, but her steps steady as she was guided forward by Strongheart, his wounded shoulder properly bandaged. "Elsa." Barkley's shock was evident in his voice. "What the hell?" Elsa stopped beside Red Elk's horse, looking up at the mining camp with clear fear in her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was weak, but carried across the distance. "I confess," she called out each word clearly, an effort in her condition. "I stole the money from Barkley's safe. I framed Helena because—" She faltered, then continued. "Because Barkley ordered me to. Because we needed a reason to track her after Carl died." A murmur ran through the assembled miners at this revelation. Barkley's grip on Helena's arm became painfully tight as his plan began unraveling before his eyes. "She's clearly being coerced," he shouted to the crowd. "The savages have tortured her, forced this confession." But Elsa shook her head weakly. "No torture. Truth. Barkley has been searching for a map. He believes Carl Schaefer possessed a map to a gold deposit in Alaska. He had our wagon train attacked to get it, resulting in Carl's death and others." The murmuring among the miners grew louder, many lowering their weapons slightly as they processed this information. Most had come west seeking honest work, not to become pawns in a murderous scheme over hidden gold. Barkley, sensing control of the situation slipping away, made a desperate decision. He dragged Helena forward, placing his revolver against her temple, the cold metal pressing hard enough to leave an impression on her skin. "Enough!" he shouted, his voice cracking with stress. "One more word from any of you, and she dies right here." Helena's heart hammered in her chest, each beat sending a painful pulse against the barrel of Barkley's revolver. She tried to control her trembling, knowing that any sudden movement might cause his finger to slip on the trigger. Sweat trickled down her spine, despite the cooling evening air, and her vision narrowed to a tunnel focused on Red Elk's face across the distance. The Cheyenne Chief remained unnaturally calm in the face of this escalation. "She does not have what you seek," he stated with absolute certainty. "How would you know what I seek?" Barkley demanded, his composure cracking, spittle flying from his lips as he shouted. Red Elk reached slowly into his buckskin shirt and withdrew a folded piece of parchment. "Because I found it," he replied simply. "In the burning trading post, hidden where no white man would think to look." Helena's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Red Elk hadn't entered the burning building in a gesture of defeat. He had gone in to retrieve something specific, something he had suspected might be there all along. Barkley stared at the parchment in Red Elk's hand, his breathing becoming rapid with excitement and fear. The revolver against Helena's temple trembled slightly as his focus split between his hostage and the object of his obsession. "The map," he whispered almost to himself. "Give it to me and I'll let her go." Red Elk held the parchment higher, making it clearly visible to all. Carl Schaefer hid this in our trading post 6 months ago, he revealed. Before returning to Germany, he said he would return for it with a woman he could trust, a woman worthy of its secret. Helena felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her feet. Carl had been to the trading post before, had known Red Elk. Nothing made sense anymore. That's impossible, she protested. Carl never mentioned knowing any Cheyenne. He never spoke of a map or gold or Alaska. Because he did not trust you yet. Red Elk explained, his eyes meeting hers across the distance. He needed to be sure of your heart before sharing such a dangerous secret. Barclay's patience snapped entirely. Enough of this. Give me the map now, or she dies. To emphasize his point, he cocked the revolver, the metallic click horrifyingly loud in Helena's ear, causing her to flinch involuntarily. I will show you what Carl Schaefer truly valued. Red Elk called out, unfolding the parchment, deliberately turning it so all could see its contents. What happened next occurred with such speed that afterward many witnesses would disagree on the exact sequence of events. Red Elk made a subtle gesture with his free hand. Young Hawk, who had been gradually shifting his position throughout the standoff to achieve a clear line of sight, suddenly raised his rifle and fired a single precise shot. Helena felt the rush of air as the bullet passed within inches of her head, striking Barclay's hand with surgical precision. The impact shattered bone and sent the revolver spinning away before he could pull the trigger. Barclay screamed in pain and outrage, his grip on Helena loosening momentarily. In that instant of opportunity, Helena's mind cleared with remarkable clarity. She had noticed earlier a lamp on Barclay's porch filled with kerosene. With Barclay distracted by his injury, she acted on pure instinct, swinging the vodka bottle in her bound hands with all her might, not at Barclay's head, but at the lamp. Glass shattered as bottle and lamp collided, sending kerosene and vodka spraying across the porch boards. The mixture ignited instantly from the lamp's flame, creating a wall of fire between Barclay's men and the Cheyenne warriors. The sudden conflagration caused momentary panic among the miners, many of whom scattered from their positions. Helena stumbled away from Barclay, falling to her knees as chaos erupted around her. The Cheyenne warriors charged forward through the smoke and confusion, their war cries splitting the air. Many of the miners, already unsettled by Elsa's confession and unwilling to die for Barclay's schemes, threw down their weapons and ran. Young Hawk was suddenly beside Helena, cutting her bonds with a quick slash of his knife. Come, he urged, helping her to her feet. While they are confused, but Helena's eyes remained fixed on Red Elk, who had dismounted and was now approaching the porch of the unfolded map held high above his head. Through the smoke and flames, she could finally see what was on the parchment. Not a map of Alaska or gold deposits, but a detailed rendering of the landscape surrounding the Cheyenne trading post, with careful markings indicating water sources, hunting grounds, and safe passages. Barclay, clutching his bleeding hand to his chest, had also seen the map. His expression transformed from pain to disbelief, then to rage as he realized the truth. This isn't a gold map, he roared. It's worthless. No. Red Elk replied calmly, standing before him despite the chaos surrounding them. It is priceless. It is a map of understanding between peoples. It is what Carl Schaefer truly valued. Barclay lunged for Red Elk with his uninjured hand, blind rage overriding caution. But Strongheart intercepted him, delivering a powerful blow that sent the mining company owner sprawling to the ground. Within minutes, the brief chaotic battle was over. Several miners lay wounded, but none dead, while the Cheyenne had suffered only minor injuries. Barclay's hired men had either surrendered or fled into the hills, leaving their employer defenseless. Helena approached Red Elk, her legs still unsteady but her spirit strengthening with each step. "The map," she said. "May I see it?" Red Elk handed her the parchment without hesitation. Helena studied it carefully, recognizing the detailed cartography that outlined not just physical features of the Cheyenne territory, but notes in Carl's precise handwriting about peaceful passage routes, trading opportunities, and cultural observations. This is what Carl was working on. She asked, overwhelmed by this revelation, about the man she had thought she knew. Red Elk nodded. Carl Schaefer came to us first as a lost traveler 2 years ago. He stayed learned our ways and saw that there could be peace between our peoples, if only there was understanding. This map was his gift, a way for others to follow in his footsteps, without fear or bloodshed. Helena's eyes filled with tears as she traced Carl's handwriting with trembling fingers. But the gold nuggets Barkley found in his collar, payment for his honest trading, Red Elk explained. Our people find small amounts in the streams. We gave them to him as thanks for his respect and fair dealings. Helena looked up at Barkley, who sat slumped against the porch railing, his face a mask of defeat and rage. All of this, the wanted poster, the bounty hunters, the attack on our wagon train, all for a map that never existed. Men like Barkley see only what they wish to see, Red Elk observed. Carl spoke of water when Barkley heard only gold. As the sun set over the mining camp, casting long shadows across the aftermath of the confrontation, Helena realized that her journey had come full circle. She had arrived in America, seeking a new beginning, and had found it just not in the way she had expected. From the edge of the camp, Elsa watched the exchange, her face a complex mixture of emotions, hatred still visible, but now tempered with confusion, and the first faint traces of shame as the consequences of her actions became fully apparent. What happens now? Helena asked Red Elk, feeling suddenly adrift in a world where everything she had believed was being rewritten. The Cheyenne Chief gazed toward the distant hills where his people's lands lay. That depends on what you choose to carry forward from here. 3 months later, Helena stood at the entrance of the newly rebuilt Cheyenne trading post, watching as a supply wagon from Fort Laramie approached along the eastern trail. The autumn air carried a crispness that hinted at the coming winter, a welcome change from the brutal summer heat that had nearly claimed her life. The trading post itself was larger and more robust than its predecessor, built with the help of miners from Blue Creek, who had volunteered their labor as a gesture of reconciliation after learning of Barkley's schemes. Its strategic location on a plateau overlooking a winding river provided both protection and a commanding view of approaching travelers. Another successful delivery, it seems. Red Elk observed, joining Helena at the post entrance. Helena nodded, pleased by the regularity that was beginning to characterize trade with the white settlements. Let's hope they've brought the medicine supplies this time. Winter won't wait much longer. The months following the confrontation at Blue Creek had transformed Helena in ways she could never have anticipated. The desperate, dehydrated woman who had stumbled to the original trading post with nothing but a vodka bottle to trade had been replaced by someone stronger, more confident, a woman who had found purpose in continuing Carl's work of building bridges between cultures. After a miners' court had found Barkley guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, false imprisonment, and fraud, he had been sentenced to be transported to the territorial capital for trial by federal authorities. Fletcher and Rollins had been banished from the territory with only the clothes on their backs. Elsa had received 6 months hard labor at the mining camp, with treatment for her addiction under Dr. Wilson's supervision. Helena had chosen to return with Red Elk and his people, using Carl's promised wages paid by the mining company's new management to help rebuild the trading post. In the process, she had discovered abilities she never knew she possessed: diplomacy, record-keeping, negotiation. Her position as a rare mediator between two worlds had proven invaluable in establishing more equitable trading relationships. Mr. Jenkins brings news as well as supplies. Young Hawk announced, approaching from his lookout position. His initial suspicion of Helena had given way to a grudging respect, then a genuine friendship as they worked together on the reconstruction. Jenkins, the grizzled wagon driver, greeted Helena warmly as he climbed down from his seat. "Got your order here, Miss Bauer. plus some mail came in for you from back east. As the supplies were unloaded, Jenkins shared the news Helena had been waiting months to hear. Harold Barkley had been found guilty in the territorial court and sentenced to 15 years hard labor. The justice brought not triumph, but a quiet sense of closure. A chapter ended, if not entirely healed. Later that evening, as Helena sat alone in her small private quarters within the trading post, she opened a letter bearing an official territorial government seal. Inside were legal documents confirming her application for a homestead claim had been approved. 160 acres of land adjoining Cheyenne territory, and including the site of the new trading post. The strategic location would create a legal buffer zone between expanding white settlements and traditional Cheyenne lands, offering a measure of protection that tribal claims alone could not provide under American law. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called. Red Elk stepped inside his tall frame, filling the small space. His eyes went immediately to the documents in her hands, recognition dawning in his expression. "Your land claim," he stated rather than asked. "It has been approved." Helena nodded, not entirely surprised that the perceptive chief had known about her application. "Yes. The trading post and surrounding acres are now legally mine under American law." She hesitated, then added with respect, "Though in my heart I know this has always been Cheyenne land." Red Elk sat on the single chair in the room, his expression thoughtful. "Two truths can exist together," he observed. "The paper truth of American law and the older truth of our people's connection to this place." He gestured to the documents. "If these papers protect our trading post and our people from those who respect only written words, then they serve a purpose." Helena felt relief at his pragmatic acceptance. "I was concerned you might see it as a betrayal, my claiming land that your people consider their own. Intention matters." Red Elk replied simply. Carl Schaefer understood this. He mapped our territories not to claim them, but to protect them through understanding. You follow his path now in your own way. The mention of Carl brought a familiar ache, but one that had softened with time. In the months since coming to live among the Cheyenne, Helena had learned much about her late fiancé through the stories Red Elk and others shared. The Carl she had known, practical, somewhat reserved, focused on their future security, had been real but incomplete. Here she had discovered the man who had passionately advocated for peaceful coexistence between cultures, who had earned the respect of the Cheyenne through honest dealing and genuine interest in their ways. "I wish he could see this," Helena said softly. The trading post rebuilt stronger than before, our peoples working together as he envisioned. Red Elk's expression held gentle wisdom. "Perhaps he lives on through the work you continue." As Red Elk rose to leave, a commotion outside drew their attention. Young Hawk's voice called urgently for the chief, the tone suggesting something beyond routine trading post matters. They hurried outside to find a small group of riders approaching from the west, the direction opposite from the settled territories. As they drew closer, Helena recognized with surprise that these were not white settlers or traders, but a mixed group, including several Cheyenne from a northern band, and most surprisingly, two individuals in the unmistakable uniforms of the U.S. Cavalry. The senior officer, captained by his insignia, dismounted and removed his hat in a gesture of respect before addressing them. "Chief Red Elk," he began formally. "Miss Bauer, I'm Captain Thomas Harrington, 7th Cavalry. This is Lieutenant James Foster." He gestured to the younger officer who remained mounted. "We've come on a matter of some importance regarding Harold Barkley." Helena felt a cold weight settle in her stomach at the mention of Barkley's name. "What about him?" she asked, struggling to keep her voice steady. "We received word today that he has been sentenced to 15 years in the territorial prison." Captain Harrington's expression grew grim. "That's what I've come to inform you about, ma'am. Barkley never made it to the territorial prison. The transport wagon was attacked 3 days ago near Medicine Bow. 2 guards killed Barkley missing. The news hit Helena like a physical blow. She had just begun to feel the relief of knowing Barkley was facing justice for his crimes, and now this, the nightmare scenario of him loose again, presumably seeking revenge against those who had testified against him. "You believe he will come here?" Red Elk stated rather than asked, his voice calm, despite the implicit threat. Captain Harrington nodded. "We have reason to believe so, yes." A station master at a way station 50 miles east reported a man matching Barkley's description, asking specific questions about the Cheyenne trading post and a German woman living there. He was traveling with 2 other men, Fletcher and Rollins. Helena guessed, remembering the bounty hunters who had aligned themselves with Barkley. They were banished from the territory but could easily have returned. "Likely," the captain agreed. "Governors put out a territory-wide alert, and we've got patrols searching all the main routes. But this country's big, and a man who knows it can stay hidden a long time if he chooses." Red Elk's expression remained stoic, but Helena could read the subtle signs of his concern in the tightening around his eyes. "What do you propose, Captain?" "Officially, I'm here to warn you and offer military protection," Harrington replied. "The governor is particularly concerned about Miss Bauer's safety given Barkley's likely desire for revenge. I'm authorized to escort her to Fort Laramie if she wishes." Helena shook her head immediately. "I won't flee and leave the trading post vulnerable." The captain looked as though he had expected this response. "In that case, I can leave Lieutenant Foster and 4 men to supplement your security until Barkley is recaptured." Red Elk and Helena exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. The offer of military protection was both a gesture of goodwill and a potential complication. Cheyenne warriors might view armed soldiers in their territory as a threat rather than assistance, regardless of stated intentions. "We accept your offer of protection," Red Elk said, finally surprising some of his own warriors with his ready acceptance. "But with conditions. Your men will respect our boundaries and our ways while they are here." Captain Harrington nodded in agreement. "Lieutenant Foster understands this assignment requires diplomacy as well as vigilance. His men have been selected for their experience with native peoples. As arrangements were made for the soldiers to establish their camp near the trading post, Helena found herself gazing toward the distant hills, wondering if Barkley might already be watching them planning his approach. The security she had begun to feel just hours ago now seemed fragile, threatened by ghosts from her recent past that refused to remain buried. Yet when she looked around at the bustling activity, Cheyenne warriors and U.S. cavalry soldiers working side by side to establish defensive positions, Red Elk and Captain Harrington, deep in conversation about coordination between their peoples. Young Hawk already sketching patrol routes in the dirt for Lieutenant Foster, she realized that she was no longer alone and vulnerable, as she had been when stumbling through the desert in desperate thirst. Later that evening, Strongheart approached Helena with a small bundle wrapped in soft buckskin. "The council has sent this for you," he announced, extending it toward her. "A gift to mark your decision to stay through winter." Helena unwrapped the bundle to reveal a beautifully crafted pair of winter moccasins lined with rabbit fur and decorated with intricate beadwork in patterns she had come to recognize as significant to the Cheyenne. "The pattern tells a story," Strongheart explained, pointing to the beadwork. "Of a water-bearer who came seeking one kind of trade but found another more valuable." Helena felt emotion welling in her throat as she traced the intricate design with her fingertips. The Cheyenne had incorporated her story into their own, recognizing her journey as meaningful not just to herself, but to their community. As darkness fell and the first stars appeared in the clear Wyoming sky, Helena stood at the edge of the trading post, the moccasins cradled in her hands. The Russian vodka bottle that had been her last hope of survival was long gone, smashed in the confrontation that had exposed Barkley's schemes. Yet its purpose had been fulfilled in ways she could never have imagined when she'd first received it as a parting gift on the New York docks. Red Elk joined her. his presence a reassuring constant in a world that had proven so unpredictable. "Barkley will come," he said quietly. "But when he does, he will find more than he expects." Helena nodded, drawing herself up with newfound resolve. "Yes," she agreed, looking toward the horizon where danger might lurk, but also where the future waited to be written. "He will find us ready."